You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner and founder of Good Life Family Chiropractic here on the south side of Lincoln, Nebraska. And we're here today to give you another message of hope, health, and wholeness. And really, no matter what your situation is, I strongly encourage you to never give up hope. So long as you're taking breaths, then God has a purpose and God has a plan and God has a path for you to get well. And so oftentimes that starts by starting to think differently about how you manage your health, because the way that our culture has gone is really led us into a very bad place. We're so sick and tired of being sick and tired. We spend more money on health than any other country in the world. We have the best doctors, the best facilities, the best research labs. People are coming from all over the world to get treatment here. And yet, when you look at the results of the care here in the United States, we are 37th out of 37 industrialized nations when it comes to our healthcare system, and we're 72nd overall when it comes to our health. And so if we want to do things differently, we have to look at health differently. And it starts by addressing the cause. It starts by defining health the way that it's meant to be defined. Health is a state of 100% optimal function and healing. And I had a family that came into my office about a month ago that really got this. They'd been spending the last several decades investing in their health. They ate right, they exercised, they even went to a chiropractor. But I happened to meet them in a vitamin shop, and they just really loved the things that I was saying about how the spine needs to be in a normal shape. And, the things that they were experiencing at their chiropractor's office weren't matching up to that. And this is very common. The way that we're taught in school is a very medicalized approach to chiropractic and healthcare delivery. They teach us basically that we're pain doctors, and that's not been my experience in the office at all. But they came into my office eventually, and I assessed their spines, and I saw, in spite of all the things that they were doing, there was still some interference in the expression of health and function and life and vitality, and it was expressing itself as symptoms. Now, on a scale of function, where 0% function is death and 100% function is life and health and vitality, where God wants us to be, your symptoms don't typically show up until you've lost 40% function. And if all you do is wait until you feel a symptom to tell you that something's going on with your health, you are putting yourself in an emergency state. You really are. If you want to be healthy and well, we have to start being proactive instead of reactive. And so this family, they were very grateful that they were doing this exam. They opted to get some x-rays to see exactly what was causing the problem. And in the mom, she was in her mid-50s, and she was dealing with not really any major symptoms per se, but she knew that something was off with her digestion. She knew that something was off with the way that she was processing food and nutrient intake. Just it wasn't quite right. You couldn't diagnose it as constipation. You couldn't diagnose it as, runny stool or diarrhea, but there was something that was putting her between both of those things, and it just wasn't normal. And it was affecting her health. She was getting sick more often than she'd like, and she didn't think that she should be because of all this stuff that she was doing to promote her health. And I looked at her spine, and when we looked at it from the side, just about any doctor that would have looked at these x-rays would have said it was normal, except it wasn't normal. It was a common position of the spine. It had about an inch of head forward posture. It had a loss of curve by just over 50%, but you'd still say it had a lordosis, not a normal and not our ideal lordosis. In fact, that position of the spine is enough to create a pathological tension on the spinal cord that can decrease your life expectancy by as much as 20 years because of that tension, because of the damage that it creates in the spinal cord over time. Then I looked at her spine from a very specific view that I only get on patients that I know we have to check out vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is the parasympathetic control of your digestive system, as well as your heart and your lungs and a lot of the accessory organs of digestion. And I saw that her atlas was rotated 10 degrees out of the normal position, pressing up and twisting her brainstem and creating disruption in those cranial nerves as they exited off, including that vagus nerve. And so I showed her what was going on, and I showed her the plan to get it corrected. And she's been investing in her health for the last month. And today I just got her first set of re-x-rays, and I saw that 10 degrees of rotation, it was down to 5. I saw that curve in her neck, it had improved by 10 degrees. It was halfway back to fully ideal in the cervical curve. Her low back, The pelvic tilt was off by about 10 degrees. Now it's off by 4 degrees. And we're seeing that consistent improvement across the board because she is willing to invest in her health consistently. And so if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired and ready to start looking at your health differently, let's start by assessing your central nervous system, because it is the system that organizes and controls all health, healing, and function inside your body. So pick up the phone and call my office, 531-289-7100. A test that would normally cost you thousands of dollars in your neurologist's office, we're going to do here in our office for just $65 if you call now and you're one of the first 5 callers. Again, that number, 531-289-7100. Now, and we're standing by to take your call, but you have to be committed to actually getting healthy. You can't just be content with feeling good. If you're just content with feeling good, you might as well just be content in getting the results that everyone else is getting. And where's that got us? Well, we are the least healthy country in the world. What does that look like? Well, we're number 1 in obesity. We're number 1 in heart disease. We're number 6 in cancer rates. And, in spite of all that, all that investment into our healthcare system, our kids are sicker than they've ever been. Where autism used to be 1 in 10,000, we're now 1 in 42 boys are going to get autism in their lifetime, most of them before the age of 5. And it really starts with stopping the fear, starting to address the cause, and focusing on what God designed for health. And what he designed for health, first off, is understanding that health is a state of 100% optimal function and healing. Secondly, understanding that health and function, it starts in the nervous system, that God breathed that breath of life into those 2 cells. And the first thing they formed was a brain, a spinal cord, and nerve roots as they branched off. And as they branched off, they grew these little fruits and vegetables at the end called organs, and grew those organs up into this living, loving, thinking clay that can sit here across the radio or across a podcast right now and think logically and think didactically and think with reason and realize just how much trouble we're in because of the way that we manage our health. It's the number 1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And even our health insurance system, which is designed to prevent people from going bankrupt, when people went bankrupt, 85% of the time they had health insurance. And so it's not getting us there, partially because of the definition of what's considered medically necessary. It says that any care that seeks to prevent disease, promote or enhance the quality or longevity of life is not considered medically necessary and therefore will not be covered. And so if we want to be healthy, the number 1 step that we have to take is actually to realize that health is no one else's responsibility except for yours. Your health is no one else's responsibility, just like my health is no one else's responsibility except mine. Obviously, we have an influence on each other, but you're the only one that can choose whether or not you're going to eat the apple or the Twinkie. You're the only one that's going to choose whether you go to the gym or sit on the couch. You're the only one that's going to choose whether to buy the healthy, clean beauty product or put on the toxic chemical wasteland that creates within you a toxic chemical wasteland. And you're the only one that can choose whether or not to go to the chiropractor. And if you're watching on Facebook right now, you can find all these shows, all these podcasts that we put up, wherever you find podcasts, these are here, but the videos are on our Facebook page. I post these at facebook.com/AskDrJake, and you can pull that up right now and you can actually see x-rays of my baby sister. Now, my baby sister, she got married just this last year, but several summers ago, she came to my office because of health concerns. She was dealing with some reproductive issues, very strong menstrual cramping, pain, strong, heavy bleeding, and then she was getting nosebleeds as well. And she'd been through a number of different rounds of treatments and medications, and nobody had been able to figure out what was causing the problem to the point where they could even get the symptoms reduced. But what we did is we went in and we started off by taking a neurological assessment. We saw that there was restriction in movement in her low back, that her posture was off, the way she was holding her hips and her shoulders, it was off. And then we got a digital nerve scan and we saw that the stress on her nervous system was abnormally high and severely so. And in some areas, it actually looked abnormally low to the point where I was concerned about potential nerve damage. And when I did get to the point where I was ready to take x-rays, we took an x-ray of her low back. And you can see, if you're following along on Facebook, on the left, you see the side view of her neck and you see the side view of her low back. And in both cases, the red lines are where her spine is at, and the green line is where she should be. And you can see it's going the exact opposite direction, putting a pathological tension on her spinal cord, keeping her body from being able to heal and function the way that God designed it to. Of course, right where those nerves come out is where God created this sympathetic control of her reproductive organs. And then when you look at the sacral base, that's off by almost 30 degrees from where it should be. A medical diagnosis of a abnormal or adult spinal deformity is any misalignment of over 20 degrees. I mean, this is astronomical in its rate. And that would just be if it's a scoliosis. Even just 5 millimeters was enough to classify something as adult spinal deformity. And so it would make sense that the parasympathetic and sympathetic control of her reproductive organs is off. Of course, she's going to have abnormal symptoms during her menstrual cycle. And then you look at her neck as well, with that going backwards. Of course, that's going to be putting pressure and tension on her brainstem as it pulls down the two places where her spinal cord attaches, at her brain and at her coccyx, both with increased tension being placed there. It's going to disrupt those nerves as it goes out to the mucous membranes of her mouth and nose and lead to dysfunction there, which in her case were those nosebleeds. And so with my baby sister, I didn't just let that go. It takes more when you're dealing with structural correction. It takes more. I didn't just tell her, come see me 3 times a week or come whenever you're dealing with a symptom. I said, we're going to adjust you every day as many times as it takes to get your spine to clear. And I did this every single day for 3 months. And you can see the difference from the left to the right with how her spine transformed. We went from a reverse curve in her low back to a nearly ideal curve in her low back in just 2.5 months. In her neck, we went from a reverse curve, a negative curve in her neck, to a positive curve. Not a normal curve, but we got 12 degrees of positive curvature out of her neck. Not perfect, but by the time she left my office, she wasn't having the abnormal menstrual cycles and she wasn't having the nosebleeds anymore. And that's the same progress I want to see for each of you. If you're dealing with headaches, if you're dealing with neck pain, if you're dealing with back pain, or if you're just like my baby sister and you're dealing with abnormal menstrual cycles or hormonal issues, or you're dealing with nosebleeds and you just have never been able to get to the cause of the problem, or you're only managing those symptoms with medication and you've never evaluated your central nervous system for health and function and vitality, you need to start there. That's why we're offering that 50% discount off of the exam, off of that full neurological assessment, and off of any digital x-rays. Those would be just $65. If we decide to do an adjustment on the first visit as well, you're looking at no more than $95 walking out of here for that first time visit. Call my office now, 531-289-7100. I'm Dr. Jake. I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Ask Dr. Jake.